Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the final forum delivered as part of the Building Capability Framework for 2019. So thank you for your attendance. My name is Chris Zielinski. I'm the Director of Skills Planning and Initiatives in the Department for Innovation and Skills, and I get the honoured role of being your MC in the final forum, so thank you. It is great to see many familiar faces in the room. I really appreciate it, and some new ones as well. And it's also great to see that we had a number of registrations for the live streaming, so thank you. We have a fairly packed agenda today, so the agenda's on the table in front of you. But before we get started, just want to run through some general housekeeping. Just like to remind everyone that the Convention Centre is a non-smoking venue. If you'd like to partake during the afternoon break, the closest smoking area is outside the main western entrance. In the case of an emergency, just follow me. I'll be the one running really fast. No. Such as a fire, please follow the instructions from the Adelaide Convention staff. Bathrooms are located in the foyer outside next to the stairs and the escalator. Additional toilets are in foyer L near the western entrance on the ground level. During the forum, I'd just like to please ensure that mobile phones are switched to silent. Don't turn them off, you will need them throughout the forum. We always appreciate feedback and questions. It's very important to us, so we encourage you to actively participate. Just a reminder though, it is a professional setting, so please be mindful of what you post. Now we're going to have Bill Wilson here to provide the acknowledgement to country. Unfortunately, Bill couldn't be here with us today, so it's unfortunate. But we will play a short audio doing the acknowledgement to country in the Kaurna language.
Ngarlo tampandi yalaka ngarlo kana yatanga en barendi. Ngarlo tampandi panaku to la yatanga. Kana mena yaiti yatamatanya wamatandanyako. Panaku yalcha, panaku tapa porna, kana mena eto yalcha porna. Yata kuma por matandi, por wariapandi, por tanka matalaindi. Kuma kumatani yaiti mena ngarlo tampandi, yanga yalaka. Panaku yata, kumatani yata, kandi patuara, kuma warnanku.
Thank you. It's now my pleasure to welcome the Honourable David Pisoni, MP, Minister for Innovation and Skills, to the stage to speak about skilling South Australia and turning the system around. Welcome, Minister.
Well, thank you very much indeed, Chris, and it's terrific to be here with part of my team, and of course all of you who are passionate about vocational education and training here in South Australia. So the work that Madeline's been doing, and those of you who may not be aware, but Renee Highmarsh is also, as a training advocate, has been doing a lot more broader work than what the advocate's been doing previously. And I just want to make sure you're aware that she's there to support those that are providing training as well as those that are using training. So it is terrific to be here. I firstly acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional owners of the land that we meet on today, and we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. And of course, this is the fourth training provider forum for the year. It didn't seem all that long ago that we had the first one back in March, and a lot's happened in that period. The state government has spent $1 million investing in building the capacity of vocational education and training in the vet sector this year, and we're doing the same again next year. And it's vital in the growing market that we anticipate skills training to be. We are rebuilding and transforming South Australia's training system under the Skilling South Australia, working together to restore confidence and quality across the vet system, build the capacity of our trainers and raise awareness about the value of skilled careers. And we are seeing a lot of anecdotal evidence coming through about an increase in the interest in vocational education throughout the community. For example, we've had meetings now with both the Catholic school sector and the independent school sector, who now are seeing, obviously through communication from their parents, that there's a strong interest in vocational pathways out of their schools. So that's a really good sign that people are seeing vocational education pathways more broadly. And one of my colleagues down in the southeast was talking about an electrical company that last year, when they were advertising for an apprentice electrician, they got 2 applicants. This year they got 16 applicants. So that's an extraordinary turnaround in the awareness of the opportunities that apprenticeships and traineeships and vocational education can deliver. And I'm particularly pleased that the government's training providers and industry are collaborating to deliver apprenticeship and traineeship opportunities in industries that have not traditionally used this pathway before. We've released a number of new pathways in childcare, disability, cyber security, a brand new training package there, and in the engineering area, such as advanced technology, a diploma that you can do through a 3-year apprenticeship now that will take the first year off of an engineering degree if you decide to move on to university after that. This is a really good message about where vocational education can take you. And so this is the exact reason Skilling South Australia project funding was established, and it was established so we can be innovative and we can deliver new programs and respond to the new economy, and to encourage employers to get creative and to implement innovative training and upskilling projects that may not fit the usual mould. So no such thing as a one-size-fits-all. We're also working together to deliver training outcomes in the regions. There are more than 90 Skilling South Australia projects worth more than $17 million underway, and each and every one of those has been bespoke built with the industry and even with individual businesses, so that we can use that funding we have, that extra funding we have through Skilling South Australia, to remove barriers, to bring enablers in for both the apprentices and the employers, so they can start their apprenticeships. And we've achieved a lot together. We're continuing to turn the system around. Skilling South Australia is getting results, with growth in government-funded VET activity in the 6 months to June this year looking very promising. So preliminary NCVR figures show that South Australia experienced a significant increase in apprenticeship and traineeships, almost 30%, 28.8%, the highest growth in percentage terms in Australia in that. So compared to the first 6 months of this year and the first 6 months of last year, we saw nearly a 30% growth in that space. And this, of course, is from a very low base after a 66% fall in the number of apprenticeships and traineeships since 2012. So I suspect that the figure will moderate in future NCVR reporting, but what this does show is, I think, that industry has recognised that there are now new opportunities to get on board with skills training. And is a direct response to the change in the policy and the introduction of the Skilling South Australia program. I think you can't deny that. That is played a big role. And South Australia is also experiencing an increase of more than 22% in government-funded broader VET activity when compared to the same period. Figures are, of course, these figures are very, very encouraging, and they are having a positive impact. Under Skilling South Australia, the national partnership we have with the Commonwealth, we've achieved 13,000 apprenticeships and traineeships in the first year of that program. 700 South Australian businesses have taken on an apprentice for the very first time, and this is significant because it is a big step for an employer to take an apprentice on. It is something that can be quite daunting, a 4-year commitment in order to do that, and so our Skilling South Australia program has helped remove some of those barriers that those employers have had to deal with in order to participate in the apprenticeship program. And our 8 industry skills councils have strengthened industry's influence over skills and workforce development. So we are responding very quickly and responding to what industry needs. And this is ensuring that funding for skills training is directly aligned to industry priorities. We want our funding to be delivering the skills that businesses need to grow and what staff need in order to be valuable members of those employment teams or the employees for those companies. And some of the industry skills councils work through the work they've been doing in their workforce insights will be released very soon. Last year we exceeded training growth targets across many industries, including construction, mining and energy, education and the service sector, food, wine, tourism, hospitality and in transport and manufacturing. Companies such as George Henry Homes, who I met just recently out on a building site, are playing their part to skill more South Australians. They have taken on 3 carpentry apprentices and a civil trainee to grow their business. It's just a very small bespoke building firm, and terrific to see that they're getting on board with the apprentice training program. We're excited as we build on the reforms to extend and expand professional learning and capability in the vet sector next year, and I want to thank you for your ongoing commitment to strengthen the skills training and your willingness to share and expand your knowledge as together we will rebuild South Australia's training system. And of course I want to thank you for supporting the government's ambition to create 20,000 new apprentices and trainees over a 4-year period, which is a 52% increase from the baseline from when we came to office. So I look forward to continuing our work together. I don't know about you, but I'm enjoying it. It's really good when you do see the numbers and you also go out and visit workplaces and you see people enjoying brand new careers and employers getting behind those apprentices and trainees. So in closing, please enjoy some of the stories of real people whose lives have been shaped by skilled careers. Thank you.
We're investing in more training places to unlock hundreds of skilled career opportunities in all kinds of industries. If you're ready to earn while you learn, follow your passion and start an apprenticeship now. A message from the Government of South Australia.
After cricket season, the height of the turf will be between 10 to 12 mil, and then it can go berserk up to 38 mil for footy season. My name is Brooke and I'm a groundskeeper apprentice at Adelaide Oval. I was employed by a group training organisation that gave me the opportunity to work at Adelaide Oval, Park 25 and various councils. They provided training, clothing and everything like that. They were very supportive and the experience has been absolutely fantastic. Getting into an apprenticeship in horticulture was sort of working and having money at the same time while getting really great experience, and sports turf was my passion in the end. I love that Adelaide Oval and turf in general, the quality standard is a lot higher than garden beds, so cutting has to be perfect all the time, and whenever you spray it has to be very precise so everything's even. Having Australia play here, for example, I cut one morning of the test, so that was really big for me because being able to provide a ground for them to play on that was at such a high standard and quality was just amazing. It was the best experience ever. I'll never get used to it, I don't think.
Defence work requires the best of the best for shipbuilding, and my role is to help people get into educational pathways to develop skills and knowledge to be the best. My name is Nick. I'm a Training Solutions Manager with the Naval Shipbuilding College. Over the next 40 years here in South Australia, we'll be building 2 offshore patrol vessels, 9 frigates and 12 submarines. But as the shipbuilding projects start to ramp up, the highest demand trades will be in heavy fabrication and welding, so we'll see a real push to recruit boilermakers and welders. Then as we go into the different stages of construction, there'll be electricians, fitters, machinists and sheet metal workers that are all involved. Across Australia, we're expecting about 5,000 jobs within the shipyards, and there could be up to 15,000 workers when you talk about supply chain work, sustainment, and indirect jobs that could be created through these projects. So now's a really exciting time to get involved in apprenticeships, because as you start to finish your apprenticeship, these build projects will be coming online, which represents a great opportunity to work on some exciting crafts.
Being a hairdresser, you are a therapist and a chemical scientist at the same time, concocting colours and developing personal relationships with people. My name's Shana and I'm an apprentice here at the Basin Haircutters. I have started off as a part-time school apprentice and I'm now in my 3rd year as a full-time apprentice, about to go on the floor as a stylist. I did a vet course and I did Certificate 3 in hairdressing as a part of my apprenticeship, and they gave me SACE points to go towards the end of my schooling. Some of the practical skills that I've picked up include being able to cut hair. I used to think it was just a cut across the bottom. It's a bit technical, it's an art in its own way. Colouring has been something that I've mastered and it's so much fun, the science and the chemistry behind it. I did think it might be a bit challenging to juggle school life, a TAFE course and working, but it actually ended up being a lot easier because doing both part-time gave me a lot of flexibility and freedom to manage them both very equally and get the work done. Hairdressing is a great qualification where I can take it anywhere in the world. It's an industry where I can grow and I can go into different areas, and it just provides a good sustainable job opportunity that you know will be constant in the future.
Thank you, Minister. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to join us, and also for your support over the year and attendance in other forums, so thank you very much. Now, to provide some reflection on the 2019 Building Vet Provider Capability Activity, I have the pleasure to welcome Madeline Richardson, Executive Director, Skills and Workforce Capability. Thank you.
Okay, hi everybody, good afternoon. Also my thanks to the Minister, and I'd also like to take the opportunity to acknowledge that we're on Kaurna lands today and that we pay our respects. So I have a fun job today. I get to provide you with a little bit of a highlights reel. So think of me, of that thing that happens when you open Netflix and there's that little montage that occurs before you watch your favourite series. I will do my best to share some of those highlights with you. And also importantly talk about next steps that really build on the shared commitment to date. All right, who's in charge here? You are? Oh, they are. Okay, let's go. Perfect. All right. So look, you'd be familiar with this. These are the key components of the Building Capability Program for 2019. They've been designed to focus on and engage with, looking across that top line, vet practitioners, also looking at RTO leaders and managers when we think about the industry currency pilots and the RTO business workshops, and then also collaboration through sharing insights and supporting networking through the training provider forums as well. That breadth of the activity and the topics reflect the importance of providing a number of different entry points, providing a number of different options that best suit you and your needs, and really reflect on your commitment to continuing professional development as well. As Chris and the Minister have acknowledged, this is our final forum for 2019. So I want to take the opportunity to recognise and thank everybody that's participated today, in person, online, and also my thanks to the team within DIS for all of their work, front of house, back of house, side of house, all of that stuff, for all of the energy and effort that goes into pulling together efforts and days like today. All right, so that highlights reel I mentioned. Okay, here we go. So by the numbers. So over the year, there's been 58 events offered in topics that you told us were most important, and that contributed to your development performance as well and supported those delivery of high impact and value outcomes. What was most popular in that? The teaching and learning pods delivered by webinar were the most popular, and the subsequent recording that was made available for those as well. We heard that particularly from our regional partners. The events have been delivered by high calibre partners, of which there were 36, representing, and bringing to the fore expertise in their field. And in your feedback, you told us that expertise and the sharing of that was incredibly valued as well. 800 people from 330 organisations have registered for events, which I just think is incredible. So again, thank you for your time and commitment. In reflecting that, we've also issued more than 500 certificates of attendance, with many more to follow before the end of the year. Evaluation is absolutely a really important focus for us in 2019 and will continue on. And thank you for providing that feedback as well. It's really valuable and really helps us to shape the program. What you see there is the rating that we've received so far. So we asked you to rate the overall quality and usefulness of the events that you've attended. At the moment, we're at a 4-star rating. It says to me that it's been received positively with a little bit more work to do. We'll continue to evaluate and hear more from you today on that as well. The highest rated sessions across the events were those that actually focused on assessment principles, rules of evidence, mapping and assessment validation. This year, we also introduced a more collaborative way for government to connect and work with the vet sector, including through forums like we're at today. Through these forums, you've put forward 140 questions, of which we have done our best to provide response to those, and built some resources online to really support accessing those whenever you need. Sharing a few more highlights. Across projects, to date, we've supported 10 of those and invested close to $300,000. So when we put out the Building Capability Project Guidelines, we asked for projects that supported innovative delivery, capability building, including being responsive to industry needs, and looking at areas of R&D to help grow a responsive and sustainable training market. So those 10 projects were awarded through a competitive process, and a range of outputs are being produced and delivered. What you see there is a short summary. So supporting the development of 2 accredited courses, 2 innovative pilots involving sort of VR delivery and masterclasses to enhance learning outcomes for training and apprentices. We're also trialling a professional development approach for trainees as well. There's additional pilots that focus on e-learning and e-assessment, and looking at a feasibility report to build an evidence base into possible future training markets as well. We're going to share a bit more on some of those projects a little bit later this afternoon through people bringing their experiences and sharing their activity to date. In terms of your FAQs, these were the top of mind, top of the list for you. So those hot topics really included, in relation to subsidised training, what are the opportunities, what are the arrangements? For Skilling South Australia, you were interested in projects and examples of these, how they come to life. There was feedback and interest in the industry skills councils and the best ways to connect. The questions around traineeships and apprenticeships, including perceptions, and how these arrangements can be, there's more opportunity for RTOs to engage in those conversations. Also, we talked about the broader operating environment for RTOs and some of the challenges, including with engagement with stakeholders and partners. And also, we touched on some of the contractual relationships with the Minister and with the department as well. We heard your feedback about the need to be able to easily find information. We've made some upgrades and improvements to our web pages and to hopefully the platforms that you access as well. We know there's more work to do there, but we've made certainly an investment in trying to make that easier. Your feedback and your FAQs will continue to shape what are the priority areas going forward. So I'll just touch on quickly each of those key initiatives under the Building Capability umbrella. Great. So just touching firstly on those initiatives that were there to support vet practitioners, noting sometimes that involves other staff in RTOs as well. These really recognise the centrality of vet practitioners in delivering high quality training. The emphasis was to support vet practitioners to reflect, to share and enhance educational practice. So in relation to the teaching and learning pods, the snapshot sessions were a refresher and reflected on key training and assessment topics. These were webinars delivered before work. They were also delivered by expert facilitators and experienced facilitators. So what did you tell us? You liked the short format of the pods and its accessibility. They helped you verify or validate your practice. All the topics delivered were useful, particularly as I touched on earlier, those focused on assessments. You appreciated just the practicality in the delivery with resources available to apply the practice, and that you're seeking more opportunities to deepen your skills and knowledge and practice. In relation to the communities of practice, those areas of focus are listed on that slide. So what did you tell us? That you valued connecting and networking with like-minded peers. You'd like to continue these communities in 2020, ideally with some support through facilitation, and that you'd like to maintain and strengthen the solution-focused nature of these communities. Into the masterclasses, thank you. They went a little bit deeper into the content area with a focus on applying that theory into action. The masterclasses are listed up there. Each of those consisted of workshops and mentoring. They're delivered by, as you can see on the slide, as their key experts and experienced players. The evaluation is currently underway on the masterclasses, and you'll hear a bit more on that today as well. In relation to the industry currency pilot, you'll hear more about this today as well, which is currently underway, and the NDS will be able to share that with you. All right. For the RTO leaders and managers, through those workshops, these were delivered to support identifying and responding to market needs and create an environment where high quality training and assessment happens. There were 5 business topics delivered, focused on leadership and management, organisational culture, developing accredited courses, really importantly, mental health awareness, and also marketing. These were areas you told us you were also seeking more professional development support. We did these in metro and regional and engaged subject matter experts. So what did we hear from you? You enjoyed the networking style and sharing practice. The social media and marketing was really relevant to your needs. Mental health awareness was well received, but you told us also that it can be challenging to put some of those learnings into practice, and suggested building on the workshop approach by linking this to mentoring opportunities. The feedback, there was also feedback that in addition to that focus on skills and knowledge, the CPD opportunities really supports that drive to focus on professionalism, image and reputation as well. Onto the building capability projects. I've touched on these a little bit earlier. So there are 10 away with the proponents, the 7 proponents involved listed up there. Of this stream overall, we're still looking at the evaluation, and you'll hear a little bit more about these projects today as well. Onto the forums. As said, we've done 4 of these, held quarterly. They've been recorded and are available through the YouTube channels. Not sure if we've gone viral yet, but you know, year's not over, okay? Look, really encourage you to access those tools. You know, we'll do the thing of providing you the link so it's accessible afterwards as well. The first forum in March really set the scene for the year and really helped us inform the subsequent forums. The second forum focused on what RTOs need and need to know about traineeships and apprenticeships. And in relation to the third forum, we had over 150 people here, and the focus, as some of you would of course be aware of, that was about engaging with the industry skills councils and looking at creating training and skills solutions. Through the table discussions, they generated a number of key points of feedback. On the key topics that emerged, I'll just share a couple of those. Building the workforce, improving communications and marketing, training package development of review, accessing resourcing and funding, and also managing quality standards and risk. So the immediate, again, this feedback is incredibly valuable. We take this and design the programs. The industry skills councils and the training skills commissions take this and inform their work as well. And so we'll come back to industry and providers and keep sharing the feedback and keep progressing this work. All right, so what next? What do we have in store? Well, I think the most important thing here to emphasise, and this should be in big uppercase, is just the continued commitment, really. It's continued support and commitment to the VET sector capability building. Our goal is to make sure this continues to be impactful for your practice and profession and that it's valued. So what are the opportunities? Again, top of that list is your ideas and your feedback. You've mentioned mentoring opportunities. You've mentioned a solution focus. You've told us as well that where possible, a valued facilitator, guide or mentor is really important to you. We'll take all of that on board. Some other ideas for the opportunities for our 2020 program also include sharing some insights through our changing attitudes and changing perceptions. Part of the video story that was presented before is a component of that. There's work that we are doing through market research to understand how we're travelling, what the feedback is on that. I think we shared that a little bit earlier in the year. We can come back. There's been a few more rounds of research since that time, and really share what we're hearing and how we're adjusting as we go to that. I think there's also an opportunity in 2020 to look also at, obviously there's delivery side of things, but also what sits behind that. What is best practice administration? How can we also bring together those administrators that work long hours, work incredibly hard to share some of their best practice as well? We will also look to share what Skilling South Australia more broadly has in store through both projects, some of the insights. Again, we've been delivering some of the Skilling South Australia activity for over a year now. There's insights we have that I'm keen to share with you as well. Later today, we'll share a bit more of what's happening with the National VET Agenda. There's a fast-moving environment at the moment. I think it's really important that we keep talking about that and keep talking about what that means for South Australia, and also where we've got best practice to share. I think that shouldn't be lost. I'll just also mention here, as many of you know, the ASQA are currently doing their consultation in relation to their cost recovery model. Those submissions close on the 9th of December. So if you haven't had the opportunity yet, there's still that window open to make a submission or to get involved in that conversation. As you provided, consistent with your feedback as well, it's maintaining those connections with the Training and Skills Commission and the Industry Skills Councils. So look, in closing today, I really hope today represents additional value for you. I certainly know it's going to help set us up for an exciting year ahead. Thank you for your attendance, active participation and feedback. And if I don't see you before, please enjoy your Christmas break. I look forward to seeing you refreshed and energised and ready to go in 2020. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Marlon. Really appreciate the recap of the activities, the highlights reel, and for also indicating how we can all contribute to the development of the program. So really appreciate your time. You have to forgive me. I missed a housekeeping item, so I'll just cover that now quickly. So, like other forums, really keen to have your active involvement. So we have Slido that is accessible to run some polls and to get your questions live. So there will be instructions that I think will hit the tables. If not, we'll have it up on the screen at some stage. So apologies, I missed that one up front. Now, before I introduce our next presenter, we're going to watch a short video about a pilot model supporting industry currency.
As our valued VET partners, you will deliver the training and assessment services that help to transform the careers of your students and build a disability sector workforce that can deliver on the aims and aspirations of the NDIS. Through the Skilling South Australia initiative, we're working with industry to develop a variety of education and training pathways to ensure South Australians have every opportunity to build rewarding, highly skilled careers in sectors such as disability services. We've funded National Disability Services to deliver the VET Practitioner Continuing Professional Development Program as part of our commitment to you in supporting the VET sector.
As trainers, you all know the impact you have on your students can be profound. on their future careers and their professional development. In the disability sector, the ripple effects of this can be so powerful on the lives of people with disability, their carers and family. Providing support for people in a contemporary, consumer-led, consumer context is paramount in meeting the challenge of an NDIS environment. So importantly, it is critical that vet practitioners keep their skills and knowledge up to date. And that's why I recommend the Vet Practitioner CPD program to all trainers and assessors, providing qualifications to the disability sector workforce. As trainers and assessors delivering qualifications to the disability sector, never has there been a more important time through your training to inspire people to make the promise of the NDIS real for people with disability. The CPD program will support you keep up to date with a range of topics in the disability sector, and once earned, you can then use your CPD certificate as part of your ASQA evidence of currency.
The NDIS has revolutionised the sector, providing people with disabilities with more opportunity and choice and control of the way they live their lives. As a disability service provider, having a dedicated, passionate and well-trained workforce is vital for our customers and overall success of the NDIS.
It's now my pleasure to introduce our next presenter, Yasmin King, who you would have just seen in the video, who's going to expand on the industry currency project that we just saw. Yasmin is the Chief Executive Officer of Skills IQ, a skills service organisation which develops national vocational standards on behalf of industry reference committees. Together, these groups represent the skill needs of around 50% of the Australian workforce, predominantly within the health and community services sector. Yasmin has undertaken international consulting work for the government of Peru, Vietnam and Thailand, and for the APEC Human Resources Committee. In addition to her role on the steering committee of the National Disability Services Vet Practitioners Currency and Disability Sector Pilot Program, that's a bit of a mouthful, she is also involved in the University of Sydney Vet Hackathon on Disability, the National Disability Services Committee on Workforce, and the North Queensland Health Workforce Alliance. Certainly very busy. Please join me in welcoming Yasmin to the stage. Thank you.
Now, I'm not sure, have I got a clicker? Or you're going to change the slides for me? Yeah, okay, all right, thank you. Thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to be here, and it was absolutely a pleasure to be involved in this project, and particularly as South Australia is my home state, and I think the whole project in terms of focus of lifting the capability of vet practitioners, again, is just evidence that South Australia takes a more innovative approach than some of the other states that I get to travel around. And so I congratulate the government on doing that, because I think that, you know, there's always better opportunities if you lift people up rather than basically focus on more compliance. But I'll talk a little bit about that in my presentation. So Skills IQ, as Chris mentioned, we're a not-for-profit, one of the not-for-profit skills services organisations. We look after 19 industry reference committees, which are made up of tripartite members across a whole gamut of things. I often say, and we have to get consensus in order to move things forward in training package development. So I often say, you know, anytime they need someone to look after world peace, I'm available, because if I can manage to get agreement across all the states and territories and sectors, unions and employers, I reckon world peace will be a walk in the park. What we also do is also support activities which we believe are going to lead to an improvement in quality in training in our sectors. That's part of the mandate of our organisation, and so hence when Juliana approached me about getting involved in this project, for me, it absolutely sits with where I think we need to do more, and was very happy to be involved. Also, as an organisation, we do undertake workforce development and research projects, and actually we're about to embark in some work here with the University of South Australia in the area of work placement, particularly in the aged care and disability sectors, on behalf of one of our IRCs. One of the committees that we look after is in fact the Disability Support Industry Reference Committee, and this is the membership of that committee. You can see that it has incredibly broad representation in the sector, and one of the things I'm going to be delighted to do in our meeting later this month is actually to talk specifically about this project, because I think it absolutely goes to the heart of how we can ensure that people who are training in this sector are actually delivering relevance to their students to ensure that it meets the demands of the NDIS. I think it's not going to be any surprise to you, and I love this quote because, a lot of people sort of make grand statements about what their focus is, but then when you actually follow the money, it doesn't necessarily translate into reality. And one of the things we certainly see that has happened in vocational education over the last many years is the focus has been on compliance, and that's where the money's been spent. We have a training impact inquiry hotline, and most of the calls are, what do I have to do that ASQA is likely to ping me on, and if it's anything outside of that, I'm not really interested. So, despite best efforts of preparing companion volumes about best practice, people go, yeah, no, if I don't have to do it, I'm not interested. And that certainly is from an organisational point of view, unfortunately, often what we see. But I have the opportunity to go around Australia and talk to many people like yourselves, training providers, and I find particularly those people who are trainers and assessors, that's not what they want. They actually want to do their jobs to the best of their ability. And so how can we support that? Because it's all very well to have a standard that says you must have industry currency, you must engage with industry, but that's really hard to do when you're also just doing your day-to-day job of compliance. So how can we make that easier? So one of the things that this model was about was talking to training providers, and in a very short time frame, I know that NDS, who were the lead on this project, went out and put out a call to get people to get involved, to provide feedback on how this can be designed. And I remember at one of the steering committee members, Nick, sort of saying, oh, look, we only had 75, 80 people who responded across the state in a 2-week period. And I was just blown away by that, because that to me was complete evidence of the fact that there were people out there who could see the need for this and wanted to contribute to its design and development. So, and I think that's why, it is tailored to what we are seeking to achieve. Can we just go back to that previous slide? Yeah. One of the critical things about this is that, the SA government obviously has funded this pilot, and it has been done with a view to it being potentially scaled and being sustainable. Because, I've been around the government traps for a long time, and I've seen many pilots done, but they're not set up for success because they can't actually become sustainable. And certainly I think a lot of the thought that has gone into this is about how can we build this so that it actually can be something that actually can survive in perpetuity. But whether that's the case is going to be up to people like you. One of the important things, and one of the reasons that certainly Skills IQ was involved, is we wanted to make sure that what was done was actually mapped to the Cert 3 in individual support disability, and that absolutely has been the case with respect to this. And there's been a complete focus on how can we, in delivering this training, ensure that it's about helping those who are engaged with it understand how they can apply the industry knowledge they're being given to delivering it in terms of the actual units of competency within the training package. So it is really styled for the audience. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It's really tailored to meet the needs of people who want to engage in excellence and training in this sector. And it's been done from a very practical point of view. One of the things that certainly a number of us on the committee were focused on was saying this needs to be practical. We don't want to see big picture, high level content, which, for many of you who I'm sure have attended many of the conferences in this sector, have heard many times. We wanted it to be tangible and specific so that it is relevant to you to actually get real capability and knowledge. And as a consequence, it's done in a very, train the trainer style as opposed to academic, which I think is a really important point. And what it is about focusing is making sure that you can you can lift the capability of the people that you are training, and at the same time also continue to develop yourselves. Now, obviously, there is a compliance benefit out of it, but that's actually not what the driver has been. It's about lifting quality. And also recognising that, as trainers and assessors, you are professionals, and it's recognising that in the same way we have the current mantra about lifelong learning for students, you as individuals also want that as well. And I suppose that goes to my point, is that I think that we often talk about what students need, and we forget that for all of us, we also need to constantly learn. And particularly in the context of something like NDIS, which is constantly evolving. I mean, we have currently a Royal Commission, which is probably also going to result in even further changes. So to stay current in that and to understand what is happening in that is really challenging. So a product like this will enable, if it becomes sustainable, for all of those changes and things to be constantly updated and to be passed on so that people can benefit from that, rather than trying to determine that themselves. And one of the very key focuses that certainly the employers involved in this working group focused on is the fact that, we have got a consumer-led system, and that means that we need to make sure that we are understanding that the people who are working in these sectors need to have a consumer focus. They need to understand what service is, and that also stems, though, from those who are training people in that sector. They also need to understand that customer service focus is absolutely vital, and there is no question that a satisfied customer is in fact the best business strategy of all, and it is where we need to focus our investment. So I absolutely commend to you this program. I think that it's been designed with exactly the audience in mind and targeted in that way. There is a small membership fee involved. It's extremely, in terms of the overall investment that's been done in the program, which has been done at a very high calibre, it's not reflective of the cost at all, thanks to the seed investment from the SA government. And its success is going to depend on people like yourselves who work in this, train in this sector, wanting to basically be members and contribute to it. And I think you've got to think about it as you, as trainers, investing in yourself rather than necessarily your organisation, because I think like any profession, people who want to be at the top of their game invest in themselves, and that's really what this is about. So I strongly encourage you to get involved in the program if you're involved in this sector. It's going to be one of the fastest growing areas in terms of employment, and it needs to be employment that is people who have the capability to work in this sector to deal with some of the most vulnerable people in our community, and so excellence should be the minimum standard. Thank you. I now have the pleasure, because we're going to have the opportunity to have a panel discussion, and so it's my pleasure to welcome some other people to the stage to have that discussion. We have Liz Cohen, who is the Deputy Chair of the Industry Skills Council and also Chief Executive of CARA. Liz has led CARA through a period of significant change, transformation, and since joining CARA in 2015. CARA works alongside more than 700 children with adults with disability and employs more than 1,000 staff, known as Possible People. Liz has more than 30 years' experience with the disability, education and health sectors, and in 2017 was a finalist in the SA Telstra Business Women's Awards. She's Deputy Chair of the Health, Disability, Aged Care and Community Services Industry Skills Council. She's been elected to the board of Ability First Australia, which is a strategic alliance of leading disability service providers, and is a member of the SA Committee of the National Disability Service, so NDS. She's happy to answer questions on the needs of the employer, the value of the CPD program for them, and also from a wider perspective, the state of the industry in South Australia. So thank you, Liz. I'd also like to welcome Nick Lombardi to the stage. Nick is the project manager with National Disability Services, and he's currently responsible for the Disability Sector Traineeship Pilot Project and the Vet Practitioner Continuous Professional Development Pilot Project, which I've talked about. He's worked in both the private and government sectors, but prior to coming to work for NDS 18 months ago, was involved in the government during the transition to the National Disability Insurance Scheme. He's well placed to understand not only the significant employment opportunities presented by the rollout of the NDIS, but also the workforce challenges. And interestingly, everybody talks about the workforce, but I have to say it's really positive when you actually see somebody actually tackling real and practical ways to address it. Nick's here today to answer any questions about the role of NDS in the industry currency pilot, and he'll answer questions about the co-designed CPD for trainers and assessors who deliver community service qualifications to prepare support workers to gain the skills needed to provide client-centric services aligned to meet NDIS expectations. So thank you, Nick. And I'm also going to join the panel, and I'll answer questions on anything, because as you can tell, I can talk underwater. And Chris, please come forward to MC. Thank you.
Thank you, Yasmin. It's great to hear about the pilot and to have yourself, Liz, and Nick here today to take some questions. So just to reiterate, if you haven't already logged into Slido, please go to www.sli.do and enter hashtag TPF4 to access the event and send through your questions now. In particular, if you have particular questions for particular panel members, it'd be appreciated if you could just indicate that in your question. So to kick things off, first question to Yasmin. Could you talk a bit about the disability pilot's applicability for aged care and more broadly for the social care sector?
Look, obviously the focus has been on national disability in the disability area, but the reality is that from a workforce perspective, it's going to be increasingly more challenging to try and categorise to just disability, because if you look at just the ageing population, the reality is more and more people are going to have a number of challenges, and so consequently a lot of it is relevant regardless of what part whether it's disability, whether it's ageing. I mean, people often sort of try and separate, for example, with respect to aged care, they'll talk about, residential care and think that that's what aged care is about and workers in that space. And yet, actually, if you look at the stats on who is in the RAH at the moment, you'll find that that would be the largest place of residential aged care in the state. So, increasingly, I think that segregation of his residential, his disability, his home care is going to basically become completely burned, and what we'll be looking at is workers who can work across basically for outcomes rather than basically physical place of how they work. And there's no question that there is potential for this to basically broaden to address that. We are going to be reviewing the Cert 3 in individual support next year, and going to be launching a series of thought leadership papers to basically really, instead of just changing that from a margins point of view, is actually look at what does it need to be from a needs-based point of view of the population that is going to be engaging it. What does that look like? And hopefully I really encourage everybody to participate as much as they can in that process, because what we want to do is design something that is going to be fit for purpose for a long time, not about basically meeting a time frame.
Thanks, Jasmine. I have one here for Nick. Having the provider peak involved in the currency program, how do you think it's added value?
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
Yeah, I can repeat. So how do you think it's added value to the program? Yeah.
Okay, well, I think, sorry about that. I think NDS is probably uniquely placed to deliver the program, because it already has an established relationship with its membership, and that includes RTOs that deliver into the qualifications into the disability sector. Also, we understand the workforce issues that face the sector through our communities of practice and our advocacy on behalf of the sector, and thirdly, we already have a pre-existing CPD platform called National Disability Practitioners, and that platform is specifically designed for disability workers. But what that's enabled us to do is piggyback, so to speak, on the back of that platform to offer this specific program. So we haven't had to reinvent the wheels. And the added benefit of that is that the participants of this specific project, we've been able to offer them all the resources available across the National Disability Practitioners platform as well, as an added value proposition for them.
I'd probably just like to add something to what Nick said. National Disability Services is the disability peak body for organisations across Australia. So the idea of this professional development project is to actually go national. So NDS is very well placed to be able to provide that platform right across Australia.
Thank you. Just a general question to the panel. Are you finding the perception about being employed in the disability industry is slowly changing since the introduction of the NDIS?
Well, I'll start as the employer. I would say that NDIS has raised the profile of the industry and the opportunity for a career in the caring industry, and specifically in disability. But I think we've got a long way to go to actually show the capacity that the industry has to provide individuals with a career path that can go from a support worker right through an organisation into a management and leadership role into the
I think that, as Liz said, I think there's still a long way to go. And I also think that we also need to not only think about vertical pathways, we also need to think about horizontal pathways. To give you an example, somebody pointed out to me that, you know, to move, say, for an example, from a care support worker to an enrolled nurse, you can earn $1 an hour more. So guess what? People go, not going to bother. So I think that, you know, we also need to understand that you know, there are going to be new roles created, like, for example, lifestyle roles, etc. So people might not move up, they might move across in order to stay in the sector. And I think we need to, in developing the qualifications framework, is understand that. You know, I think often, you know, we keep focusing that everybody wants to move up the chain, but some people don't. They're happy at working at their own level, but they might want to sort of change focus or direction, and we need to have a system that can manage that as well.
I think it's important to stress that with the rollout of the NDIS, that the range of work in the sector has expanded rapidly, almost to, you know, only to the extent that your imagination can go. So, but it's also important in that context that people working within the sector understand their obligations to their clients or participants and to the scheme. So the training has to reflect that as well.
I'll just add some of Cara's experience around employment and the NDIS. Cara primarily provides supported independent living services to people with the most complex needs in South Australia. So we run services 24/7 in shared homes and in their own individual homes, as well as clusters of units or apartments. And with the transition of those people's funding across to the NDIS, they have received on average 18% more hours in their package, which means they get 18% more hours across any day, week, month or year. So that means for Cara, we need 18% more staff to actually deliver those services. So at the moment, we're recruiting 100 FTEs. We're an organisation that is already over 1,000 staff across South Australia. So you can see the importance for Cara to actually have credible staff that we can tap into to come and work with our customers who are quite vulnerable. So the program that we're involved in with the CPD adds value to us because we know that the trainers are up to date with what's happening in the NDIS and understand the needs of the employer. And then we can search out staff that we know have been trained and prepared for the industry because the trainers are actually prepared.
I think just finally, just to build on Liz's point, it's important to recognise, as Yasmin pointed out in her presentation, that this is now consumer-led. We're in a consumer-led environment. So if Liz's staff aren't up to scratch, the participants of the scheme can elect to go somewhere else. And I think that's really important to understand. So that goes all the way back to the trainer, how they deliver the training product, and of course the training product itself.
Look, thank you. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'd just like to also thank Liz, Yasmin and Nick. If you have any other questions, I'm hoping the panel members will be willing to discuss further through the afternoon tea break or the networking drinks after the forum. Alternatively, you can send through your questions through Slido and we'll try and respond out of session. So please join me in thanking the panel. It's now my pleasure to introduce David Tout. David is a Senior Research Fellow in Numeracy and Mathematics at ASA and has over 40 years' experience in education, mostly in the vet sector, working in program schools, training and community providers, university and industry. He's one of the authors of the Australian Core Skills Framework, and is appointed member of the Education Industry Reference Committee, which is responsible for the training and education and foundation skills training packages. Please welcome David to the stage.
Thanks, folks, and nice to be here. Like Yasmin, involved in one of the national IRCs, and of course we're the ones that cop a fair bit of flack because we're responsible for the TAE. One of the good things that we've done, but there were some negative comments about it on social media, but recently there was a new TAE version released because we have added in two new units to Cert 4 that are about disability, and they were cross-sectoral. That was a cross-sectoral, cross different IRCs work. I imagine, hopefully you had some involvement in them, but there's two units that now people can use as electives in the TAE about supporting workers to work with people who are working with learners who have got disabilities. So I think that's a very good initiative. I'm here to talk about the masterclass that we ran here in South Australia, based around literacy and numeracy. And I guess to me one of the really crucial things about why we're investing in literacy and numeracy was highlighted this week because the PISA results came out, so the media's very, very full of the fact that Australia's skills in literacy and numeracy are not heading in the right direction. So that was PISA. These are 15-year-old kids, so I guess the story is that for all of us working in VET, the problem of literacy and numeracy skills is certainly not going to go away. That the foundation skills performance of our adults, the program in international assessment of adult competencies, which I'm the chair of the numeracy expert group in that. There's a new version of that coming out that will be undertaken in Australia in a couple of years. And so we'll know in a few years whether our performance in adult literacy and numeracy have gone forward or backwards. But all of the data indicates that we do have a challenge. But then all of the research also shows that as we move further in the 21st century, we actually require higher and higher levels of literacy and numeracy skills. So there's a bit of a challenge that we're facing. And I guess from my perspective, and certainly from South Australia's perspective and the government, I think we know that this is a challenge, but it's everybody's business. So I don't think we can say that it's preschool's problem. We can't say it's primary school problem. We can't say it's a secondary school problem. We can't say it's a vet and adult problem. I think it's a problem that everybody has to address. The issue often in the vet sector is we're the ones who seem to have to pick up a lot of those problems, but it's no point blaming the schools. This is the reality, and it's not going to change in the short term. So I think, to me, it's always a pleasure. I seem to be in South Australia a fair bit these days. I've been coming over and working with the department for 4 or 5 years now. It's always a pleasure to be over here. I think you're lucky in South Australia because you actually have a government who believes, and not only believes in the importance of foundation skills, but actually invests in supporting you as RTOs and trainers in actually addressing that issue. And it is a challenging issue to address. So it is a delight to be here. You have the upfront assessment of needs. I think Australia is also privileged. It's our Australian Core Skills Framework. I'm a bit biased because I'm one of the authors, but having done a lot of international work and looked at the equivalent qualifications in other countries around the world, I think we're fairly well placed with the ACSF, and we're pretty unique in having the foundation skills training package. And again, the new version of that was only released about 2 weeks ago. And South Australia had input into that. I dobbed Juliana to be on the working group that oversaw the review of the foundation skills training package. So I was involved in one of the 3 presenters from ACR who were involved in running the masterclass. I mean, I don't actually know what we did because the participants, and there's a few people here today, they were the ones who ran the show, and we just acted as facilitators. So I see them as the masters and us as the sort of learners and facilitators. It was a great project to be involved with. So we had a variety of people with different backgrounds, mainly private RTOs. I guess the focus from our perspective was using Action Research Cycle to try and make people focus in on something that was achievable. And Alex is here and she'll come up in a minute and tell you she's one of the participants. But I think all of the participants who were there could equally come up and tell their story and their journey. Whoops, can we just stay there for a minute? One of the other key things is that the work that they did will could count towards getting the TAE Foundation Skills skill set. That's 3 units. It's the core 411, but also 412 and 413. And what did the projects achieve? I think there were a few unique things about what each of the participants got out of the masterclass. And one was that each of the programs that they've come up with, and they're still in progress, I don't think anybody's completed their projects yet, but they were integrated and they've put the learner at the centre of whatever it was they were doing. So however they were implementing the support for foundation skills, it was done in an integrated way, a holistic way, where the learner was at the centre. And I think that's, one of the core skills. That's where I see foundation skills sit, as being part of everything else that people are doing. Certainly the projects were diverse. It was from building and construction, involved electrotechnology, financial literacy, community services, you name it, working with fellow staff about the importance of literacy and numeracy and supporting fellow staff. So it was a wide range of projects. And there were 2 other words that stick in my mind about the success of the project, and one was the passion of all of those people who were there. They created their own community of practice, and Kate and I sort of have sat in the background and prompted and helped a little bit, but they have worked with each other. Their passion has been amazing. And I think the other unique thing, I think in the area of literacy and numeracy, sometimes we can be a bit patronising towards people who have challenges. And I think what was also amazing, there was certainly not one element of being patronising for the learners that they were working with and supporting. And I think that, to me, is also a really significant thing about how we treat people who, no matter what they're coming to our RTO with, our job, I think, is to support them and certainly not to patronise. So Alex, can you come up, and I think Alex can tell you her story and about what the masterclass has helped Alex to do and to achieve. There's a few quotes there, but we'll leave those up at the back because people were very enthusiastic. So this is Alex. She was one of the participants, and Alex is a coordinator in business development at Actus or Octus Consulting. Yep. So I guess my first question is, first of all, why did you bother joining the masterclass about the ACSF? The ACSF, of course, it's this big, red, awful document. It's not easy to digest.
The Bible.
The Bible.
Yeah. I think I primarily joined the masterclass because I always had a bit of interest around, from my previous role. So I worked in like a learner support services capacity and in a case management kind of model for a few years, working with students in all different areas. And I always notice that even when there's an LLN issue, there's always something a bit more, which sometimes unwrapping that, you find that there's other tangents attached to these issues. And I didn't really know what that was, but I wanted to investigate a bit more about it. And I thought that the masterclass would have would give me a good platform to be able to do that whilst at work, thanks. And see where we could take it. So I thought it would be good to work with other people, in the industry and see what we could find.
Good.
Yeah.
So what did you actually do? So
what did I do?
Tell us a bit about your project and what the opportunities were that arose through.
Yeah, it kind of worked in flow with what I was already doing at work, which was really good because I was able to just adapt it into my normal routine. So we were in the process of getting our Skill in South Australia project off the ground, and that seemed to be a really good opportunity to use the foundation skills. And we're running the Certificate 3 individual support, So as that's work ready funded, we already have the support of foundation skills trainers accessible to us, learner support services as well. So all of these people around that could help to build on that. So I thought maybe we can look at some kind of program prior to them signing up to this traineeship to make sure that our outcomes are greater by supporting them through all these different means. So they've got the foundation skills, but not just basic assessment in a classroom, but we had the opportunity here to do a really use a creative approach to this assessment where we were actually funded to do it. So it was really exciting to be able to do that.
So how did you use either the ACSF or the Foundation Skills Training Package to help you achieve what you've only just started, I know, but yeah.
We have only just. How did I use it? Well, we found through feedback from employers and also from our trainers in the individual support area that students lack the skills to do some of the tasks that they've been asked to do daily. And rather than just going, okay, well, here's a bridging unit, or okay, you didn't do so well in the SRNI, this is what you need to do now as a separate entity, but we wanted to embed that into this program. So we had 5 weeks where it's still in the process now, but we've got 5 weeks of really intensive training and an opportunity to provide them with hands-on learning approaches. So, okay, you don't do so great with written assessments, but that's great because we're going to do this today, and this is going to look at your communication, and well done, like you've done this, you've achieved this, and how can we apply that to work? So instead of just this traditional, here's your assessment, even the word gives everyone the shivers, you know, now you can build a community, you've got this group together, they're going through a process together, and I think the ACSF and being able to do that, and this masterclass as a prompt along the way, was just a really good opportunity for our program.
So I guess what I was saying, it was about the fact that everything was integrated. So it didn't. Yeah,
it was.
It wasn't sort of an add-on or separate.
No.
Yeah. So last question, and hopefully people are thinking about questions that they can ask Alex. But these things never go smoothly. So can you talk about some of the challenges of, of implementing this?
Yeah. So I guess the first two things that kind of come to mind are talking about holistic education approaches. I believe that you do need to look at the well-being of the person fundamentally before you're just like, go and learn this. Sometimes it's not their LLN, sometimes it's their confidence, sometimes it's what they've been told from the past through their education or negative experiences that they've had. So you do need to unpack some of that heavier stuff. So we covered a lot of resilience and well-being techniques, looking at PERMA theory, positive emotion and their engagement, and the other things that go on that really do impact your ability to learn and your willingness to learn consciously and subconsciously. So that is a challenge to work through those processes with people depending on their situations. And I guess also, which wasn't particularly an issue for us because we used the Skill in South Australia project as our program fundamentally, but I think for other people that didn't have the support of their workplace because of whatever reason, or access to funds to be able to spend the time and the resources with this idea, that would have been maybe a challenge for them, but we were quite lucky that we had that opportunity with Actus. Yeah.
All right, good. Okay, so anybody got any questions, or Chris, have you got any on Slido, or there's roving mics somewhere? Oh, and somebody must have a question. Yep, please. Good.
Hello, well done on your project, fabulous. One of the issues that I see with the CHC training package in particular, particularly the Cert 3 in individual support, is the kind of people that are going into that qualification, generally English as a second language. I'm interested to understand how you unpack a English as a second language learner with LLN issues, because the likelihood of them having the LLN issue in their native language, but managing it in English without going back and fixing it in their native language.
That is difficult, yes. But again, I think it kind of, with the individual support and it being work ready funded, there's so much support around what you can do for those students. So you're not on your own. You know, you've got your foundation skills, you've got other programs. So I think through this program, this masterclass, we were able to meet all these other people who can offer these additional services that we may not be able to. So I think partnering with others and dealing with these issues collectively and not just on our own is really important, and looking at the skill sets of others if we may not have them ourselves. But again, although that is mostly a language barrier there's likely to be other barriers too, you know, culturally and depending on why they're in Australia, what's their background, you know, where have they been, where have they come from. So all of these areas, again, relate to their well-being, and that is foundational to foundation skills. I think it's like a layered onion, you know, idea that it needs to be partnered. Yeah.
And I guess that's also the purpose of having the foundation skills training package there, so that you could select, you know, whether it was oral communication skills units that you would need to use in order to support those particular. And so from a, you know, that sort of pragmatic level of why the FSK was developed, it's hopefully so that you can grab some units and hours in order to support those learners whilst they're doing their course, but also somehow integrating it. And, you know, and my perspective is, you know, the FSK shouldn't sit by itself, or it should be always integrated into the delivery, which is, I think, what was really good about the project that Alex worked on. Does that prompt any other questions from? Yeah.
Great.
I'm only going down this pathway because it's a real issue that
Yeah.
I think a lot of RTOs and particularly facilitators are facing. We're having a much more diverse classroom in this day and age.
Yeah.
I know we have the TESOL, but that's really for a whole different reason. For yourself, Peter, was there any consideration to looking at what units or components of units that could be brought into the FSK that could accommodate or help with that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether you've had time to look at the new FSK. It's only been out for a few weeks. But in the rejigging of it, we've made it a lot more flexible. So there's, instead of 8 core units, there's 1. And the whole purpose of doing that is so that for your cohort, you have a lot more flexibility in what you import. And you can import units from other qualifications. So it seems to me you now don't have to do the 8 units if you were delivering the qual that you might have in the past. So, you know, the only core unit is a learning unit, which I think probably everybody needs. And then you could select as many units as you needed from other training packages, so you could integrate it, or you could import some units from other training packages. So in terms of the structure of the FSK, I think it's hopefully enables you to target what those learners need. But it's, I mean, I could show you the graph from the PIAC results, and I mean, what's the average age of people who are actually going into that sort of area? And so our literacy and numeracy abilities are best when we're in our 20s and 30s. If you're younger or if you're a lot older, then your skills are a lot lower. So the challenges become harder if you're working with older adults who might be wanting to be retrained, or who want to work in aged care, for example. Then we know their literacy and numeracy skills are going to be a lot lower. Yep. Yasmin?
What about the area of assessment? I mean, you commented, Alexandra, about the fact that assessment is often a point that's extremely challenging for people with LLN issues. They say that millennials were the Google generation, but the current generation are the YouTube generation. You know, if you want to know how to do something, YouTube it.
Yeah.
So how much do you think we are seriously looking at using visual rather than written mechanisms to address assessment. And do you think that there needs to be more focus on that?
Yes. In short, I think yes. And I think when you change the approach to the assessment, you take away the intimidation. And when somebody's comfortable, they're more likely to be authentic and not only ask you when they are struggling, because you're not scary now, you're nice, and that's okay. But you can unveil other skill sets that would not have been seen if you didn't give them that new environment. So part of our assessment is that we're lucky enough to have an assessment, what we call the lab. So we've got, hospital beds and lifters and a bathroom and all of these things that we can utilise. So part of the programme that I'm running is for foundation skills, kind of numeracy, to be conducted in that environment. So it's contextualised to the industry that they're moving into. But hey, how much of this meal on this table in this dining room, which you will see, has been eaten? Let's have a look at this. Maybe it's a pizza and you can see that 75% has been eaten. Let's document that on your daily chart, which you'll be required to do anyway when you move into that space. So keeping it relevant and fun, putting them in groups and observing a little bit back. Like there's all of these techniques that we can use, which my idea is that if they work through this, by the time they get to the end of this room and they've completed all of their daily activities that they will be doing in their role, then hopefully they'll have completed a full assessment in writing, but in a different way than they would if they were in a classroom doing it in a book, being asked about percentages and who wants to do that. So the idea is to make it fun, engage them, encourage peer support, contextualise their learning experience, and but still keep it compliant. Yeah.
I mean, and one of the projects, I can't remember who it was now, but one of them was about working with trainers within their RTO. So in the masterclass, it was about working with fellow trainers, about checking that your assessments were actually accessible from a foundation skills perspective, and so therefore, so I guess all we're talking about is the masterclass gives you opportunities. I mean, this discussion is about the fact that it actually opens people up to doing their own thing. Kate and Louise and I had the easy job. We were there as facilitators, but it was a fantastic opportunity. So.
I think we have time for one more question.
Right, good.
Alex, what do you think will be the impact of the project on your trainers and the RTO?
I think we'll see greater outcomes, definitely. And I think if we can, because this is just a bit of a sort of pilot program, if we can measure this and it is as successful as we think, or we can model it slightly different of how, using this as a template, I think that it will be a really cost-effective way of increasing our outcomes, because you don't have to bring in a foundation skills trainer necessarily. You just need to have the skills as a trainer to bring this out in others. So if we can incorporate this into our training, then I think we'll see greater outcomes and it will be more sustainable, and we'll be able to deliver that to a vaster range of our students because we can afford to do it. So that's what I think will be the best outcome, hopefully.
And just as a finish, I mean, I think the benefits of the masterclass we've now got a group of amazing mentors who hopefully can now be utilised. So, my plea will be that somehow some more training happens next year, but the main people who deliver it and who support fellow people in South Australia will be the team who went through the masterclass this year. And I think the outcomes have been pretty amazing, but they're all starting on their journey. So it's been my privilege, so thank you to Juliana and Chris and everybody in the team here to have started this, to initiate it. And I think we've heard a few things that South Australia's not bad. So I have some Adelaide blood in me. My mum's from Adelaide, so I have cousins here that I catch up with each time I come over. So it's always been a nice excuse to get paid to come over, and I can then have family reunions. So it's really good. And it's been an absolutely fantastic opportunity. So the congratulations are actually to the participants in the masterclass. Thank you.
So thank you, David and Alex. Really appreciate the insights into the masterclasses. Once again, if you have any further questions, I'm sure Alex and David will be willing to have a chat at the afternoon break, or alternatively just send through your questions through Slido. We're going to mix it up a little bit now because we've been sitting down for quite a while. So we're going to get you involved in an activity at your tables. Lachlan Kay from our client engagement team will facilitate the session, and we're going to try and get your thoughts about how you can contribute to the professional development planning for 2020. Very interested in hearing about your experiences and also your preferences for next year. So welcome, Lachlan, to explain what we're going to do.
Oh, no need for applause, please. Thanks, Chris. So, as Chris said, my name's Lachlan from the Department for Innovation and Skills Client Engagement Team. I'd also like to acknowledge that we're on the land of the Kaurna people, always was and always will be. So this is the more interactive part of the forum today, and I also want to point out that this is a safe space. We're aiming to facilitate an environment that allows for a free exchange of ideas and opinions across the room. So welcome and thanks in advance for your participation in this activity, both those physically in the room and those participating through our live stream. I don't know where to look to find them. We've heard already about the importance of continual professional development, of professional learning, and the impact it has for our students and our industry. Okay, so far we've been looking back to celebrate 2019, but now we're looking forward. Okay, so we're looking forward to articulate what professional development works best for you, okay, and what your priorities are for 2020. And this will help us shape the 2020 events and activities that are going to support the capability, professionalism in the vet sector through our Building Capability Framework. This facilitated session is divided into two parts, okay, and these will be interactive, so get those thinking caps on. Firstly, it'll be polls using Slido, and secondly, we're looking at next year and what your priorities for professional learning are, and I'll explain how we're going to do that one. We've recently asked you to input, for your input about professional learning via our survey, and some of you may have responded, so thank you to those that have. We'll share what you've told us already through this survey, and we'll invite further discussion. At the end of the session, we'll collect your feedback and place your sheets of paper up on our sticky wall to my right there, so you can then view other responses, and please feel free to add more detail if you wish throughout the forum, the remainder of the forum. We'll collate your responses, and we're committed to providing a high-level summary to you via email, which I think is really important. Okay, so to our participants, today is about empowering you, okay, the practitioners, to tell us how you want professional development processes to be done better moving forward. And it's our responsibility to reflect how you think this should be done in our strategies moving forward. So for our first activity, we'll ask you all to log back onto Slido via your devices. Hopefully those that used it before are still logged in. Hopefully someone at your table can tell you the log-on details. I'm not sure if we have any up there, but hopefully you're all able to get onto Slido. Feel free to ask our roaming experts. We're going to have about 4 or 5, I think, roaming experts going to each table to help you to answer these questions and to help with any questions you may have or give you any assistance. So, 2 simple questions, the first of which should be showing up on your Slidos now. How many hours of professional learning have you undertaken in the past year? Gives you 3 options, okay? And please remember to click submit. You have 1 minute to answer. I need some sort of elevator music in this time or something. Ah, there we go, on cue. And your time is up. Okay, so the second question is, once again on Slido, what professional learning activities have you participated in during this past year? Okay, so just clarifying, this relates to activities where the specific intent was professional development, okay? These answers should show up as a word cloud on your devices. Please answer the questions, and once again, you have 1 minute. Okay, thank you, time's up. So hopefully you'll see some word clouds appearing on your devices there. And hopefully we got some good feedback on professional development experiences there through that activity. Okay, so we're going to go to the next slide, I think, guys, if we can. Wonderful. So what does professional learning, your professional learning experiences look like moving forward? Okay, so this one's about planning for the future. So we're going to look at the future, but we'd also like you to reflect on good past experiences of best practice professional development, okay, and what the key features of these have been, just to help inform our responses in this activity. So the second activity asks you to look to the future, excuse me, what your professional development learning experiences might look like. We're interested to discuss and unpack your professional learning focuses for next year across the room. Before we start, we wanted to share exactly what we've already heard from you, or some of what we've already heard from you, and other vet sector partners about your focus areas for next year. This will show, I guess, where the areas of focus are for your peers and might help prompt your thinking as well. So we can see some of the examples up there. Okay, so we've got vet practitioners in this particular slide. Okay, this was vet practitioners' answers in this survey. You've told us that you'll be focusing on assessment, practice and validation with a focus on industry engagement and collaboration. Many of you are also interested in focusing on how you can facilitate learning and more specifically learning theory and design, so that conceptual stuff. The next slide we'll look at relates to non-teaching staff. Okay, and this reflects a fairly diverse range of roles within the RTO space. But we note that there was a fairly high level of sort of consensus in your responses to these questions. The topics listed on the slide are unranked, and there are high-level themes that definitely deserve some unpacking. The topics include business development, as we can see there, leadership, project management, marketing, and good old quality auditing. Some staff were also interested in assessment validation, which of course mirrors the vet practitioner focus areas. So there's some common focus areas we can see there. So for this activity, it's going to be pretty interactive. So once again, thinking caps on. You might like to focus on one of these aspects you've seen on the slides and unpack, or there might be something else entirely that you'd like to focus on. Okay. So participants in the room, please use the paper provided on your tables to write down your responses in groups, pairs or individually. And for those participating online, please participate via Slido's Q&A function. So for room participants, we think it'd be a good idea to share your responses with someone else during this activity, just to unpack them and perhaps elaborate, or you can share as a group. Okay? So please, once you're ready, write down what your role is and what your professional learning priority is for 2020. So your role and your professional learning priority for 2020. Please then convey what an ideal professional development delivery would look like, record and discuss, and try to consider the following in your feedback. Why is it so important? What will you gain out of it? What should it look like? What will you do or how will you participate in it? And how, when, and where should it be delivered? Once again, why is it important? What will you gain out of it? What should it look like? What will you do? How will you participate? And then the how, the when and the where should it be delivered. You've got 5 minutes for this activity. Once again, our expert roamers will be going around to tables. Okay, they're there to assist. Live streamers, please feel free to ask questions of one another, and you have 5 minutes. We'll then share some responses across the room afterwards. Yeah, that's the one. So these are the first two things we're answering here, your role and your priorities. And we'll get the next slide up now if we can. Okay, everyone. I'll call your attention again if I can. Sorry to break up your conversations, guys, but we're slightly limited to time. I'm sorry about that. Okay, everyone, if I could have your attention again, please. Thank you. All right, so I hope you've got some feedback there around your professional development experiences, what you want it to look like moving forward, okay? Hope you looked at the why, the what, and the how, the when and the where you hope it can be delivered. What we're going to do now is go round to a few tables with the few minutes we have left, so you can share some of your responses, which I think will be really valuable in this forum, in this environment. So I'm happy for people to raise their hands if they feel they have something valuable to contribute. And if you don't, we'll get a table roamer to pick a table out. So would anyone chomping at the bit to share some responses from their table? We have one over here. Wonderful. That's good. Just a summary is fine.
I guess our table was talking about the foundation skills and having the opportunity to put a lot of our trainers through that skill set to embed in their training. And yeah, that was pretty well. What do you...
Another one, I was fortunate to go to quite a bit of the PD throughout the year, and one of the things that struck me almost every time was the total lack of school involvement. You know, a lot of RTOs here work with schools, and some of you have third-party arrangements whereby we have staff in schools who are delivering, and I would have thought that would have been a perfect opportunity for those staff to be there with the RTO staff doing the learning. So I'm not quite sure why schools weren't there. That might be something for the department to follow up.
Wonderful feedback. Thank you so much. Excuse me. Thank you so much. I'm choking up. Okay, is there any other tables before I start crying? Any other tables that would like to share their feedback? Aha, we have a hand up over here.
I think Cricos providers are the forgotten providers, so I'd like to see them integrated more into what we're doing.
Thank you. We have another hand going up over here. I saw it was half raised. Wonderful. Yeah. Heidi, just in the middle here. Thanks.
I've been able to go to a lot of the pods this year, and I've absolutely loved all of them, and it's helped to solidify a lot of the knowledge I had and gain new. I'm a lead trainer in designer and development for my RTO, and my biggest problem at the moment is LLN. For me, not for my students so much. In the fact that when I'm designing and developing, I'd really like to be able to put more information or understanding how to put that through. And I've spent the last 12 months trying to find study on LLN, and currently in Australia I can't find anything for me. There's a diploma on Scope, but no one's teaching it. Can't find it. So for me, I would really love to be doing some personal development around LLN. We auspice with a beautiful range of LLN support services and do hands-on and do wonderful, get our students through the door really great. But from my point of view, when I'm designing, I would really love to have some more information around the issues and the way of writing something so that my students or my cohorts can understand what I've written. And sometimes the trainers don't get it either. So from the development point of view, I'd really love to do some LLM training to try and in the development process.
So
and I think that it should be done like the pods have been done, or before or after work. For a lot of us trainers, our jobs are contracted. So if we don't work, we don't get paid. So doing development is something we love doing, of course, I hope. But if we take time off work, we don't necessarily get paid to do this. So being outside of working hours would be absolutely fabulous.
So if you can try to reflect that in our follow-up with the feedback and the sort of concept and design. Wonderful. Don't have to tell you then. And that goes for everyone that's responding. If you look at the what and how it might be done better, please reflect that in your feedback, okay? Because we'll certainly listen to it and incorporate it into our strategies moving forward. We have time for one more respondent. Do we, Heidi? Oh, you'll just give me the 1 minute left, sorry. Okay, so I don't think we have any more tables unless anyone really wants to give us some feedback here. No problem. Well, thank you ever so much for your participation in that activity. Next steps. Can you please leave those sheets of paper on the table? As I said, we'll collect them over the afternoon tea break, which we'll have now, and we'll stick them up on that black sticky wall. Okay, so once you come back from your break or during the break, feel free to have a look at them, have a look at other responses, and feel free to add responses at any time. As we said, we'll collate the responses, share a high-level summary on what you've told us, and then that'll be an opportunity to add more or elaborate on some feedback you've given here. This will be used to identify vet sector capability activities that are impactful and, importantly, needs-based for 2020. Okay, we'd also ask that you encourage your colleagues to complete the Have Your Say survey, if you can, which we'll send a link to after the forum and which is also available via our provider website. Thank you once again for your participation. I hope it was a valuable exercise, and I'll hand back to our MC, Chris. Thank you.
Thanks, Lachlan, and for everyone for their participation in that activity. Well, hope you've enjoyed the first part of the forum. We're going to take a break, as Lachlan mentioned. For the live streamers, please take the opportunity to break for coffee, and for everyone else in the room, encourage you to speak with our presenters and participants and departmental staff over coffee or tea during the break. We will reconvene at 3:25 to see some highlights from the 2019 capability building projects and hear from project participants. We'll also have some information around National Reform Agenda and the recently released Vet for Schools policy. Thank you.
We need to make a start. So welcome back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the afternoon tea, had a chance to talk to your friends and to make new connections. There will be another opportunity to network after the forum over a drink and some nibbles, so please stay behind if you can. My name is Irina Firulova. I work for the Department for Innovation and Skills, and today I have a great pleasure to introduce to you some of the building capability projects which have just recently been completed. Can I just have a show of hands who knows what building capability projects are? Yeah, terrific. Yeah, and what sort of opportunities? Not many. So I just give you a little bit of a background what building capability projects are about. Madeline mentioned in her presentations earlier today that building capability projects are one of the streams under the building capability framework, which was announced by the minister earlier this year. In April, we released the Building Capability Project Guidelines and invited applications under 3 categories: development, research, and innovation. We received 40 applications, funded 10 of them, so it was a competitive process, and we had a very tight timeline for the applications in the first round. The projects were meant to be ready to start immediately and to be completed by the 29th of November, so which was just last week. Those 10 projects which we awarded in April, you can see the names of the training providers on the screen. Some of the training providers received 2 projects. I would like to introduce to you those training providers who are in the room today, and I know that Peter Nolan is here. Pia Witt were working on 2 projects under the innovation category. Bob Miller, I don't think he has come. I know he registered, but I haven't seen him. So Adelaide Australian Fisheries Academy was working on a project under the innovation category as well. Debbie Speed from ECHA, I don't think she's here. Anyone from ECHA here? No? So they were working on a project under the innovation category. The regional skills training, Caroline Graham and Mel Gregor are here with us today, so they were working on 2 projects under this category as well. Under the development category, we had only 2 projects. One was awarded to Towndy Aboriginal College, and Tadashi hasn't been able to join us today, but we have Trish Buff from FCTA Building Careers who was working on the development project as well. We had Civil Contractors Federation working on 2 projects. One was under the innovation category. I haven't seen Victoria here today, but the other one was under the research category, and we had only 1 project, which was a real shame. Hopefully there will be more in the future, but we had only 1 project under the research category, and we have Rebecca Pickering with us here today. So all 10 projects have now been completed. Reports, case studies, and learning journeys have been submitted to the department and will be shared with you via the training provider's website. To give you some insight into each of the 3 categories, we have made 3 videos and interviewed participants from each of the project category. I would have loved to make a video of each and every of the 10 projects because each project was unique in its nature. It was delivered with passion and quality outcome. Unfortunately, time and resources required us to be selective, and we will be looking for opportunities to promote successes of other projects via other means. After we have played the 3 videos for you, we will have a panel discussion where you will be able to ask project participants questions about this project. So please use your Slido and submit the questions. We will answer as many questions as possible during the time allocated to us. So let's watch the videos.
This project allowed us to come up with a solution to the nationwide critical shortage of heritage trade specialists. We've developed a Certificate 3 level course that teaches tradespeople as well as new people to the industry how to work on heritage buildings across the country. This is a good example of where a bricklayer or stonemason who haven't been taught the correct techniques has thought they can use cement to replace the existing lime mortars that we use. The Buildings Capabilities Grant allowed us to actually have the resources available to develop a proper course. The grant that we got obviously has fast-forwarded our plans by probably a good 4 years. I've been lucky enough to receive a Churchill Fellowship. Part of that will be me going to the UK in April and May. So as part of my travels next year, I'll be meeting with the City and Guilds, going to a couple of colleges. We'll be setting up trainer exchange programs. We'll be bringing them over to upskill Australian trainers and also show us the best new techniques as well as tried and proven traditional trade techniques for heritage.
I know industry is very excited about having the opportunity to have this qualification and having students actually come into the building like Z Ward and experience a practical example on a real building. There's a lot of people that are very excited to see this roll out in South Australia, and it'll improve the quality of workmanship throughout the state.
I'd encourage small RTOs to become involved in projects like this. Small RTOs spend much more time at the coalface, talking to people in industry every day. Being able then to create courses or to develop new ways to assist industry with training, it's easier, in my opinion, to make that happen if you are a small organisation.
This research paper came about in conversation with industry leaders from the rail and the civil sector. It was identified through a number of different forums that there was some rail spending coming from the South Australian budget in particular to the tune of 1.1 billion. Certainly there is concern across those industries that the workforce may not be available nor capable of delivering those infrastructure projects. Certainly the crux of this research was understanding the viability for establishing more RTOs here in South Australia to deliver the Cert 2 in rail infrastructure. The findings from this research paper were interesting. It's unfortunate or fortunate, depending on how you look at it, that this research has concluded that for new RTOs to enter the market, it doesn't appear that that is a viable option today. Also, the data suggests that there isn't an immediate skills shortage until 2024. The positive point of the research is it was clear that for South Australia in particular, we do have different needs to that of other states, and that there very much is an opportunity for industries like the civil sector and the rail sector to work together to ensure that it has a combined workforce or portability of skills. I believe the vet sector can benefit from research pieces of work like this. The university sector has had research for many years, and I think its benefits are tenfold. I think it's positive to see building capability projects and opportunities like this where vet can undertake more research. I think it's something that we need much more of to the benefit of not only the vet sector but the industries that we support.
It is not realistic for us to expect to have a farmer agree to put a young person in a header when that header is $1 million machine without that person having a really good idea of what that machine is all about. And I see the VR technology as being a fantastic way for us to be able to give them a real life feel of what they're going to be faced with when they're on farm.
The kids have all definitely loved having the virtual reality goggles implemented within their workshop that they all attend. We can grab them and they can put on the virtual reality goggles, go through the VR experience, and then after that they can sit down and complete the assessment tools afterwards. And we find we have a really great response with that as kids are really involved with technology these days.
The cost of the videographer and the cutting afterwards meant that we could only make one. So that I think was my biggest frustration, and it's actually in actual fact caused us now to employ an in-house videographer so that we can move ahead, because the benefits of this technology became really apparent.
Within agriculture there are certain things which students just can't actually, they're not allowed into. So teaching them things and showing them things that traditionally they wouldn't be able to see is only going to benefit the students.
The virtual reality technology is going to let us put it into a package that gives the industry confidence and gives the kids that are doing our training confidence.
I now would like to invite to the stage the panel members, those 3 people who were interviewed for the purpose of the videos. Caroline Graham, Chief Executive Officer from Regional Skills Training. Trish Buff, Chief Executive Officer from Flexible Construction Training and Assessment, Building Careers. And Rebecca Pickering, Director Apprenticeship from Civil Contractors Federation South Australia branch. So please send your questions through the slider so that we could answer them. Let me just see what we already have on slider. So while we are waiting for some questions coming through sliders, I probably will start with the first question. What was the most exciting part of being able to undertake this project? Anyone who would like to
I'm going first because I'm sitting next to you.
Sure.
For me, anything, I'm passionate about agriculture, obviously. What the video you saw there was actually my farm, and we are broadacre grain farmers as well as being an RTO. I am also passionate about safety. So for me to be able to, with my heart, put kids and young people into our machines, and as our innovation is rapidly expanding, and to be able to make it into a real scenario for them and still keep them safe is paramount. And so having the opportunity to have a feel of this sort of way of teaching in a funded way for us is fantastic, and so we're going to progress with that.
Excellent. Someone else would like to share their experience?
For me, it was being able to make a difference. We'd been working on this project for about 10 years, and there's a pile of reports almost as tall as me, about 4 foot, sort of saying that we need this to happen, but nothing is happening. So the grant was an incredible opportunity to get something first in Australia happening in Adelaide.
Rebecca?
I think having that opportunity to be one of the first research projects to be undertaken under the project was fantastic in itself, and giving recognition to I think that a task that RTOs and GTOs and industry bodies undertake quite often but don't have the recognition for it or the support to carry out the research the way that it needs to be done. So I think it was great to just have the opportunity to bring some formality and some recognition to it.
Thank you. I just need to check with my colleagues. Either my slider is not working or we don't have any questions. No, I've refreshed it, but nothing is happening. Thank you. So the top question on the list is, do you have any recommendations for a training provider that may be considering undertaking a project under the current opportunities?
Go for it is the simplest answer, but I think probably most important is make sure you select the category that is appropriate to your needs. Really hone in on what it is that you want to get out of it, because I think that it's fantastic for our government to be supporting us to put our toe in the water with projects like this, but to me the most outstanding outcome for RST has been that already I've employed a full-time videographer and I'm looking at employing another person, and I systematically want to go through all of our units of competence that we deliver and turn them into real-time, real-life video outcomes, so that our kids, like we were saying before with Alex, with we're going out of reading and writing and into visual, and we need to make sure that we give our people the technology to be able to immerse themselves in what it is that we're doing. And so thank you very much.
I've got a specific question for Rebecca. Are there other research pieces you think would be good to pursue for your sector or across all industries?
I think, like this research has identified, that there's certainly opportunity, and even talking with Carolyn about agriculture, again, it's striking how many synergies and potential opportunities there are in cross-skilling, particularly trade apprentices and other trainees across multiple industries to give our workforce more portability between trades and sectors, and be able to move between different places in the economy to support whatever work is going on at that particular time. So yes, there's plenty of research that can be done, and to see how we can actually make that happen. How can we model that to ensure that traineeships and apprenticeships are as flexible as they can be and are delivering outcomes for industry.
Thank you, Rebecca. Maybe for Trish, do you have any tips about the application process?
The project managers, Arena, Ziggy and Juliana, were just a great resource. I spoke to and met with you quite frequently in the lead up to putting in the applications, and also engaging with industry early and getting your supporters to verbally get out there and support you, so people understand that it is a well-supported project.
Thank you. How did you manage your day-to-day business and work on this project as well?
The project was the outcome of quite a large number of people. We collaborated with obviously practicing farmers and with the safety company as well as our RTO staff. And so I think it became very quickly we identified that what we wanted was to take this further forward. And so the amount of time we spent on it was irrelevant. It didn't matter that it was taking a lot more time than what we had thought it would, because it's now a daily part of our business.
Thank you. Someone else would like to add?
Well, we're a small RTO, so there was a lot of overtime. But we wrote a qualification of 19 units. You don't need to do a course that big. Courses can be just 1 unit of competence. I would love to see a unit of competence in this virtual reality stuff. I'd be very happy to do that. So yeah, it can be, the projects I believe can be scaled to your size as well.
Rebecca, would you like to add something?
I agree with the same comments that the project is as small or as large as you need to make it, and I didn't find it so much of a cost impost to write and to put together the paper at the end of the project was one thing, but it was more giving industry and those that you're engaging with enough time to respond back to you. So that was probably the more pressing time, and starting early and giving them every opportunity to engage and get involved.
Thank you. Caroline, there is a question probably more for you because of the virtual reality tool which you produced during this project. Does ASQA recognize virtual reality as practical training?
Oh boy, they must have been sitting on that table because our little yellow piece of paper is exactly asking that. Can I not pass, but say that my answer to that is that I think one of the roles we have as an RTO is to make sure that we convince ASQA that the methods of training that we provide have got to consider all of the aspects that are important. So it's more important to me to be training someone in a header, as you saw the machines that are currently used by farmers, or front-end loader or whatever, that are currently used by farmers, that are the size that are currently used by farmers. I don't want to train on what I call a dinky toy. And so therefore the aspect of the VR is that I can put these kids inside these machines in a virtual way, so that when they get into the machine in reality, they're feeling familiar and comfortable. They're less of a risk to themselves. They're less likely to make a poor decision. And so I think it's our job as RTOs to go back to ASQA and say, you need to consider this. This has to be considered to be reality, because otherwise our kids are not going to get these opportunities, and you're going to limit their opportunity for employment, and you're going to limit the opportunity for training. So it's up to us, it's our responsibility to make a difference and stand up and not be frightened to put this point across.
There is a number of other questions on Slido, but we are running out of time. So I will ask the final question of all the 3 participants and give them all the opportunity to respond. What did you find most challenging during this project?
We went into on the cost of the 360 video footage and the person to produce the final outcome, and that required us to reassess what we did and put in our own resources. And ultimately, whilst that was a shock, it's beneficial in that we've, as I said, now gone ahead and employed our own videographer, and we've bought our own equipment so we can move forward from here in a much more cost-effective way.
Thank you. Trish, what was it for you?
Getting the industry feedback on paper, that was for the ASQA requirement. That took longer than writing 19 units.
Thank you. And Beck?
I think for us it was, I think going in thinking that, or having an understanding from an industry that there was a certain outcome that the research would support, and then it quickly becoming apparent that a different outcome was potentially going to be present at the conclusion of the research. How you frame that back to industry, how you have those conversations, and try not to constrain that process. So if it does end up here, then that's where it needed to end. And look for other research and how you move forward with that.
Thank you so much, Caroline, Trish and Beck, for your interest in these projects, and all the other training providers who applied during April and participated and completed the other 7 projects. We do have another round of applications open now. On the screen there is linked to the page which has all the information about the project, including the project guidelines, the application form and the guide for submission and assessment. The projects have got the same 3 categories: development, research and innovation. And this time we have rolling applications, which means that we will be assessing the applications as they arrive, but we will need to close them once we have expended the money which we have got allocated to this particular initiative. So if you do have an idea about a project proposal, please try not to delay, put your application in, and let's see how we go. We make a very strong emphasis this time on training providers and industry connections, so we really like you to work together. And if industry have got an idea about how their skills or training needs could be addressed, they are very welcome to approach training providers and put an application in, but the actual proponent does need to be a training provider that has an active funded activities agreement. So this is the link. It will be in the PowerPoint slides when you receive them after the forum. There is a contact email address and the contact phone number if you have any questions about the guidelines or about the application form, or you may just wish to discuss your project ideas with us. So just don't hesitate to contact us. And the project participants and myself, we will be around after the forum during the drinks. Just feel free to approach us and have a conversations if you would like to know more. Thank you so much, the panel members. Thanks a lot for your participation.
Thanks again to Irina, Trish, Rebecca and Carolyn for sharing the projects and for joining us at the forum today. As Irina mentioned, I'm sure all panellists will be willing to talk further and take questions, so please hang around after the forum and ask your questions then, or also you can submit them through Slido and we'll have a look at the questions. We are now moving into the government update section of the agenda, and unfortunately Beck Curtin, who's the project director of Skills Policy Reform, was unable to join us today, so you get me, and I'm going to have a crack at it, but hopefully I'll give it a good go. So working through the national reform, the Commonwealth Government through the 1920 budget announced funding of around $500 million for the skills package, delivering skills for today and tomorrow. The package laid out the building blocks for reform identified in the expert review of vocational education training system by Stephen Joyce, and outlined several measures to strengthen VET. Of particular interest was the establishment of the National Skills Commission, the skills organisation pilots, and the National Careers Institute. The government is taking a co-design approach, so many of you would have attended forums or workshops, particularly in Adelaide a few months ago. In August of this year, COAG agreed to a vision for VET and tasked skills ministers to develop a VET reform roadmap. In September, skills ministers met and agreed 3 priorities for the VET system: relevance, ensuring VET is relevant and responsive to the job market, employers, industry and learners; quality, supporting public confidence in the quality and value for VET for students throughout their lives and creating parity with the higher education system; accessibility, ensuring all prospective students and employers can access suitable information and training when and where it is required. So skills ministers also met again recently in November and agreed to immediately fast-track 4 pieces of foundational work ahead of the roadmap being completed. These 4 pieces, there was a review, or there will be a review of the VET student loans. This is around parity across the, I'll say, further education system. The use of micro-credentials in the national VET system to better respond to student and job need while preserving the importance of recognised qualifications. Reforms to the standards for registered training organisations to move the system of regulation from its focus on compliance to a focus on excellence in training. And streamlining training packages to deliver more relevant skills for industry individuals through immediate action to make the current system faster, simpler and better. And this will include immediate action to identify and remove all outdated and unused qualifications. Skills ministers also confirmed the importance of bringing the Commonwealth Skills package into the roadmap. Senior skills officials, or skills senior officials, are currently developing the draft roadmap for consideration for skills ministers early next year. Part of this development will include consultation with stakeholders, including RTOs. Skills senior officials are meeting in Canberra next week to work through how to implement the immediate foundations that were agreed by ministers. So sorry, that was a pretty quick update. Happy to take any questions via Slido and we can respond to them later. But I didn't want to stand in the way of our next presenter. I'm going to talk you up a bit here, Michelle. So Michelle has the honour of taking the last session and you are all in for a treat. I would like to introduce Michelle Potts, otherwise known as Potts, Manager for VET for Schools, Further Education and Pathways for the Department for Education, and she's going to speak to us around the VET for School Students policy. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you, Chris. So first of all, I'm delighted that I can actually see over the lectern because like Trish, I'm 4'11" and I don't wear high heels. So some of you might know me because I did work for the Department of Innovation and Skills for a very, very long time. And hello to those who know me by email and phone. Some of you I've met before and been able to put the faces to the names. And I apologise if some of you know who I am and I'm not recognising you because we actually haven't met before. I actually want to be quick with my update because what I want to do is give you the chance to actually ask me questions. I guess the one thing I'd like to know, is there anybody in the room who didn't know that recently, this year, there was a review, a consultation and a review of the VET for Schools policy in South Australia? You didn't know? Okay, great. Then I know where to begin. Okay, so there was this year an in-depth consultation to look at VET for Schools, to see how it could be improved. We were fortunate to get lots of fantastic feedback from industry, providers, schools, parents and even young people. A culmination of that is that in October, on the 24th of October, this wonderful document was released, and it is the Minister for Education's policy for VET for school students, and it's for all 3 sectors of education. So whilst I do work for the Department for Education, today I'm here to talk to you with my Minister's hat on for all 3 sectors. These things that I'm talking about today affect public schools, Catholic education and also independent schools as well. Okay.
Where we're at the moment is really just letting people know what the policy is about. And so the policy has 3 pillars. I hope that's better. I also have a very loud voice, so I'm trying not to yell at you as well. In fact, I could probably do without this altogether, but I know there's people watching online. There are 3 pillars. So the pillars are clearly articulated pathways. We've got enhanced career education, and of course we want improved student outcomes. So within those 3 pillars, these are the key changes that we're looking to make through the policy. The first in clearly articulated pathways is to have flexible industry pathways, clearly identified and endorsed by the industry skills councils. These will define the pathways that young people can take whilst they're in secondary education, and they are about VET. They are about VET pathways to employment, directly and indirectly. We also are supporting flexible contracts of training contracts, by the creation of enterprise and employability skills that can be embedded into the curriculum to enable young people undertaking a training contract to work near full-time and at the same time still complete SACE, perhaps even after Year 12 in Year 13. So that's new, and it does mean then that employers have a degree of flexibility that hasn't been available before, and so do young people as well. Simplifying the VET funding arrangements was a really important piece of feedback that we got. It's quite complicated in terms of the rules, the processes, the procedures. People really don't know how to navigate it, and a lot of time it's very confusing for the students and their parents in particular as well. So clearly articulated pathways is all about making that simpler as well. And also introducing a new gateway to VET for school-enrolled students. It's got the magical name of VETRO, which basically means VET Readiness Orientation. And what that means is before they come into the VET system, they'll be carefully looked at to make sure that they truly are ready, and in all senses, and also that this is what they want to do. Because what we don't want any more of is VET being used for all the wrong reasons and actually not being used for the right reasons. And all the wrong reasons include credit farming for SACE purposes, trying to get increased ATAR scores through VET, using VET as an engagement tool instead of actual curriculum. So the curriculum itself can be used in many, many ways that it's currently not being used for. And in fact, a lot of work will need to be done to build that capability for educators in the system to use the curriculum as was intended instead of VET to engage young people, particularly disadvantaged students. So that's the key points under the articulated pathways. Supporting that is obviously we have to do a lot more in terms of educating young people and their families from a much earlier age about industry and career opportunities. So that would start now from years 7 to 10 and would include industry exposure, immersion, improved information, resources, to make sure that they have the information that they need and have the exposure and the experiences and the opportunity to properly explore what they want to do before they make the choices in Year 10 about what they want to do in Years 11 and 12. And choices made that early aren't concrete, they can change as well. This is not a black and white model, this is flexibility as well. To be able to move between VET and other pathways like higher education, using their education to support them as their interests change. But primarily we want to make sure they're well educated with really good information, including access to career specialists, actual professionals whose job it is, that it's not something that's tacked onto a teacher's workload. The other thing is to improve how the PLP, the Personal Learning Plan, is used in Year 10 to make sure that that is a career education and exploration process that will connect them to things like the World of Work Challenge, where they'll have the opportunity to partake, like they would for the Premier's Reading Challenge, in exposure to industry, immersion opportunities, up to the 100 hours that they can collect and record in an e-portfolio online that then helps them as they go forward with what they want to do, including it provides a demonstration of their readiness for the choices that they might want to make in terms of VET as well. All of this would then lead to improved student outcomes. We want to build VET capabilities in the schooling sector to help them to better understand VET and how VET's meant to be used. So we recognise that they need support to deliver quality VET to their students, and so that is a key priority of this policy. Also, as I said before, building competency and capabilities in using the Australian curriculum and SACE to engage students instead of using VET as the engagement tool. Also, looking to improve the completion of VET qualifications themselves. Those of you that are familiar with TGSS will know that the completion rates aren't good, and often that's because it's not being used for the right reasons. We would be very happy, our Minister in particular, to see less young people undertaking VET, but actually undertaking it for the right reasons and achieving both their SACE and a qualification outcome at the end of it. And it providing a genuine pathway to employment, to what they want to do after they finish school. And finally, one of the key changes is in the introduction of measures of school performance and collecting destination data. As you would know, what is measured is valued. And at the moment, VET isn't really measured in any real way, and it's not really valued. So these changes will be supported by very clear performance measures and starting to collect destination data, and in fact reporting on destination data in 2021 for the first time as baseline data. So in December, a VET Ministerial Advisory Council for Schools will be established, and we'll have on that committee key organisations that are critical to oversighting and implementing this policy. So the Minister, it is the Minister's Advisory Council. It will have the Department for Education, Catholic and Independent Schools, SACE, the Department for Innovation and Skills, and the Training and Skills Commission. Together, they will oversight the development and implementation of this policy. And on the ground, it's actually my teams that will implement it with a great deal of support from the Directorate, the Further Education Pathways Directorate that I'm part of. And also working very closely and collaboratively with Catholic and independent schools on a number of these particular policies as well. So that was the key things that I wanted to tell you, and I guess what I'd like to know is what you would like to know outside of that, any particular things you'd like me to unpack or questions that you've got related to this. Hey Carolyn, we haven't talked for a while. I'm good.
Shall and I go back a while?
We do.
And this is a question you're probably going to expect coming from me. Look, RST is very much on the ground. We couldn't get much closer to the ground if we tried. I've got 4 kids at the moment that are going into Year 11 next year, and guess what? They're not 16.
Ah, yes, okay.
Our perennial TDSS, these kids are from the... We're talking about this next week. I know, but I want to know if anyone else out there has got the same problem. You know, those 4 kids are going to be disadvantaged. They're from schools that are in regional and rural areas. It's not their fault they were not born in the end of this year, but they're born at the beginning of next year. Our industry is seasonal. They need to get into it right at the beginning of the year.
Sure, I get that. Really good question, and you're right, I would definitely have expected you to ask me that one. So, this year is a year of transition, yeah? So the key changes that we're talking about will come into effect in full from the start of semester in 2021. So over the next 12 months, a number of these things that I've been talking about will be developed, including in the first semester of, very early in the first semester of next year, the flexible industry pathways, which will include the funding and conditions of access guidelines that would accompany those courses that are subsidised by DIS. This issue, which is also an election commitment, will be resolved through that. I'll hand that one back to to the funny man. So yes, the answer is it is an election commitment. It will be addressed. It is a transitional year next year, but going forward, these sorts of issues will be resolved, yes. Oh, come on, there's got to be others.
Hi, Michelle.
Hey.
How you going?
Good, how are you?
It's good to see you again. Just one of the issues or roadblocks that I've been coming across quite a lot with RTOs who are delivering vet at school is the timeframes in which they have to do it in. Generally, they get 1 day a week or half a day a week. By the time the school goes back, they enrol. You know, it's kind of end of February, early March. They have to have everything done and all the results in by the end of November. School holidays come out. You've got a 33-week singular or half-day delivery time, which quite often isn't enough time for these students. Build into it issues around practical components, particularly in some of the lower level Cert 2, Cert 3 kitchen ops, for example. You end up with kind of 23 delivery days left. How are we, I guess, managing that in terms of making sure that if they are going through the vet programs in school, that they are actually getting quality and we're giving them the time to actually learn the skills as we are required to do as a vet provider?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. So timetabling has come up consistently as an issue in terms of young people being able to access vet, how schools timetable to allow for young people to access it, and also timetabling at a personal level around how much time is given them in their timetable to actually undertake it. So whilst I don't have all of the answers, because part of the process of implementing this is actually to do that with people, including schools and providers, what I can say is that those issues should be thought about well in advance of them actually entering the vet system in the future, in terms of early identification that vet is a pathway that they would like to take, consideration from year 10 around what that means for them, around the selection of their choices, and the timing that's allowed for them in their timetable so that they actually can undertake it. Volume of learning is very important, and also actually being in industry, working on industry site is also very important too and needs to be prioritised. So going forward, those are the sorts of concerns that we hope to manage through the revitalised PLP, the enhanced career education, and also through the introduction of the gateway to vet, and also building vet capability in teachers in schools so that they better understand what young people need in terms of the circumstances or the conditions for them to thrive when they undertake vet as well.
Thank you.
I told you it would take a lot longer than 6 minutes.
Michelle, we've actually got a couple of questions on Slido, if you're interested, from our live streamers.
Can we perhaps take them on notice and provide a response, if that's okay? Sorry to cut that short. I'm just conscious of time, and I know that there are nibbles and drinks waiting outside, and we are currently 11 minutes over. Look, please join me in thanking Michelle for her time today. Thank you very much. That concludes the last forum for 2019. I'd like to thank you for your attendance and active involvement in this and previous forums throughout the year. We look forward to your continued participation in next year's activities. We have or will be emailing a short survey around to everyone that has provided their contact details. If you could take the time to complete the survey via your phones, that would be greatly appreciated. We have covered a diverse range of information today. Encourage you to continue the conversations with each other and the department after the forum. Please call the info line and ask to speak to our building capabilities team or the email, which is not on the screen, but disbuildingcapabilities@sa.gov.au. We will be sending out a copy of the presentation slides to everyone that has registered today with the contact details included. If you would like to be involved in slightly more structured networking and are prepared to share your contact information with other guests at the forum, please leave your cards in the bowl outside on the registration desk. If there is a particular topic that you would like to discuss with a colleague, please write that on the back. We'll collate the contact details and share the list with those that have also provided their card. Whew, almost there. Look, I'd like to thank everyone who has participated and presented today. Really appreciate it. Thank you to the live streamers for joining us today as well. We hope that you're able to contribute to the conversation via Slido and continue to provide feedback through the channels on the screen. Finally, a big thank you to the team for planning and organising not only today's event but also the forum throughout the year. I would really like to acknowledge my DIS colleagues, and in particular Emma, Narelle, Di, Paul, Kevin, Arina, Juliana and Mark. Thank you, team. Please join us and presenters, panel members for a celebratory drink and some food outside in the foyer. And once again, thank you, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays.